Hey guys, good morning. My name's Andy Purdick, Regional Sales Manager, FiOS, and Tony Roman is part of the team that's bringing FiOS to New York City. I also have three other people that can just wave their hands because there's got to be questions. And typically what happens, this is my 9th year doing this, we go through the presentation and then there's some specific questions on your buildings. And as you can see, there's a lot of people here, so we'll take those questions. We can then answer some here. We could also answer them at the booth, which will be booth 100 downstairs. All righty? So like I said, this is my 9th year, and a different way of saying that is when I first did this presentation, the majority of the people in this room had DSL, broadband, and we were rolling out 5 megabit speeds. And there was a lot of people asking me for 5 megabit. And we roll forward 9 years, and I just answered 2 questions on gigabit speeds, which is now what we have. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of changes. So the purpose of this presentation is to kind of walk us through it. This part of the presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about New York City and why New York City is just different. It's just different when it comes to broadband. And then Tony's going to take us through the applications and how it impacts your MDUs. So the first part of this presentation starts with a safe harbor statement. So when I get done speaking, people usually want to buy stock, but you shouldn't do that because this is just high-level information. All right, this is just sharing you some of the business roadmaps. So we have to put that out that I am not a stock analyst, and you'll see why. As far as the agenda goes, introductions we went through, we're going to talk a little bit about bandwidth and what your properties need and you as a person. And then we're going to talk about the current future of FiOS, currently where we're at and where it's going. And then we'll talk a little bit about your properties and how people are using it, and then there's questions. So broadband explosion. All righty, when I did this slide 9 years ago, like I said, we were doing DSL, we were doing 1.5 megabit speeds. And as you can see now, we're up to gigabit speed, which is 980 megabits. And what that means is it's just very fast, very, very fast. So here's what happens, and I want to highlight this. When we talk about a FiOS service, whether it's gigabit, 100 megabit, 150 megabit, we're talking about a symmetrical speed that the upload speed and the download speed is the same. No shots here, but if Spectrum, RCN, Cablevision, I don't care who it is, ask them what their upload speed is, because everyone promotes download speeds. But the thing that's key here is to understand your upload speed. So view it as a highway. You have traffic going north and south, and you can go the same speed. So if you're in rush hour, typically the traffic that's coming to work goes slower because everybody's coming to work, and then after work it changes, right? That lane is now faster and the other lane slower. Well, what FiOS does is it gives you 2 very fast lanes. And when I was driving in today, I get to the Lincoln Tunnel, and all I can see is buses going by me. And I really wanted to be in a bus because of the traffic. Now, if that was FiOS, I would be in that HOV bus lane. But I was in cable. I was in the slow lane. That was the more cars on the road, the slower it goes. The more users on the internet, the slower it goes. FiOS provides you a dedicated fiber path. Key point. Now this is my favorite slide because I don't have to change it ever, because New York City will always be these numbers. If you look in New York City, what do we think about New York City? We think about congestion, a lot of people in a small space. So when you look at the country, 313 million people, worldwide 7.8 billion people, in New York City there's 8 million people. Does anybody want to take a look from a broadband perspective and make a comment what that might mean between the country, the world, and New York City? What it means is that's the number of potential broadband connections you could have from your apartment. Worldwide, 7.8 billion people. In the country, 313. New York City, 8 million. So what that means is there's only so much space, right? So in New York City, people can be on the internet, and it happens, and you know the peak times in the city when people are sending files back to China, back to India, worldwide. And it's photos and movies and pictures. So it's creating a lot of cars on the highway. So the connections are virtual. It's not just physical. But now if you look at the number of people that could possibly do that, USA, 87 people per square mile. In New York City, there's 27,000. So once again, there's a lot of people on the highway. And then you look at the land per square mile, 3.5 million versus 302. So what does that tell you guys? It tells you there's only a finite number of space to put 27,000 people per square mile. That'll never change. And in that space, there's internet connections. That'll never change. So you got a finite situation here that needs technology to resolve it so you can reach the 7.8 billion people that we're growing to. And then the living units, 3.3 million in the city. Now that matters because we get, over my last 9 years, a lot of demand for FiOS. And we can build typically about 250,000 units per year on the MDU side. So what that means is there's a big demand, there's a big queue for us to bring the service out so people can enjoy these benefits. So what I want to leave you with before Tony goes is the fiber optics is your HOV lane that provides you the benefit of having faster internet connection to the world, which is more and more. And when I did this at DSL speeds and I'm at gigabit speeds, I can assure you next year it will be beyond gigabit because the fiber optics, once you get it into your building is now technology proof. It's light. Nothing's got to displace it. Nothing against the cable companies. They use coax cable inside the building. Why? Because it was better than DSL. This leapfrogged that, and there's nothing left. There's light. Physical, coax, light. And when you hear about 5G and that technology, you still got concrete walls in your building. That's not necessarily going to drive your MDU. So fiber optics is the winner as far as broadband goes. Okay? Is there any questions on that aspect? I know I've been drilling it, but that is the foundation. Go ahead. MDU is multi-dwelling unit. So condo, co-op, is where you live. I'll help you get home, don't worry. All right. All right, Tony. You want to take it over?
Sure.
Or you want me to do this one?
It's up to you.
All right, Tony wants me to do this slide. She likes the other slide better. All right. So basically, this is a bandwidth slide. And this is when you hear about bandwidth, right? There's wireless bandwidth, there's coax bandwidth, there's fiber optic bandwidth. So we know about the FiOS side, that's fiber. And that's fiber going directly to your unit. You're going to hear other companies say they're fiber optic. They are out in the street, But to get that gigabit speed into your unit, that's why we come in and we knock on the door, we bring that fiber optic to your closet, and then from there you can use coax throughout all your house, but that's how you get the speed. As far as the other providers in the city, I just named a few, right? And then you have the satellite providers. So everybody has a story. And Fios isn't everywhere, so there is reasons to have different broadband options. All I can tell you is if you have a chance, and you do, consider the Fios, because that'll give you the different throughputs. All righty? All right, Tony, take us through the content. You want me to, it's to the right.
This one? Okay.
Yeah, that'll change.
Okay, so basically this slide just shows you that you need broadband, right? And that's why you want Verizon Fios. Virtually everything that people do nowadays is over the internet. No matter what you're doing, people are working from home, whether you're on Facebook, Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, Skype, Twitter. I mean, the sky's the limit. And as long as you have the bandwidth, that's all you need. All you need is bandwidth. 60% of traffic on the internet is going to be video. Was video last year. I'm sure that number has increased this year. And so that number is just going to keep on growing. The only thing that's going to make our network better is the equipment that we put in our central office. I mean, right now we're offering gigabit service, which is the 940 over 880. Who knows what we'll be offering next year? And that'll only get the network, once the network is in, you've got fiber. All you need is us to change the equipment in our central office, and we'll just keep giving you more and more bandwidth. This slide shows you the proliferation of connected devices in the home. This slide is actually a little old, 2013, and it shows you, how many devices the average home has, 9+. I'm sure that number's increased by 2018, and that'll grow by next year. I know, if you have teenagers in the house, they've got probably 2 or 3 devices on their own. So I would say probably the average these days is maybe 15+, right? People are working from home, so the devices are just increasing more and people they need bandwidth.
Hey, Tony, I'm just curious. Is there anybody here that has like 20 devices connected? This is Sonos, this is security. Yeah, I mean, so, ultimately we did this slide, it was like 3. And then about 3 years later, it became 7. And when we use 15, it's all the security cameras, it's all the Internet of Things, it's all the medical devices that are coming out. That number of 15 will be much harder to track because refrigerators and heating systems, security cameras. So that, ultimately, this is a key point because the Internet of Things is requiring bandwidth. And if you have multiple, and Tony says Netflix, I live in a house with 4 people, 3 of us use Netflix, I'm the one that doesn't. But they're down streaming. And then that's why when you hear about 100 megabit, it sounds like a lot, but once you start connecting everything, it's really not that's what's driving the growth ultimately.
So it used to be that, when you bought an apartment, everything was about location. Now location is still super important, but things like having a fireplace or a pool or workout or a gym become less and less important. People we need broadband. And that, according to the slide, 81% of people who live in an apartment building, co-op, are looking as broadband as an amenity is more important than anything else, right? And you want to be able to use that broadband anywhere you go in your building, right? You want to be able to leave your apartment, go in the hallway, go downstairs, go to the laundry room. You want to have broadband wherever you are. So it becomes the most important thing wherever you live, whether you're living in a home or an apartment building. And just to backtrack for a second, and it's the thing that differentiates your building from the building next door, right? Because these days, you live in New York City, everyone, may have a washer and dryer in their unit, a pool, a fireplace, a gym. I mean, those are things you can find anywhere, but what differentiates your building from the one next door is broadband. How fast is your broadband, right? Are you getting broadband just to the curb, or are you getting broadband to your unit, which is what we're doing with Fios now? I'm not sure how many people in the room have you actually even tested, your speeds, right? So you should be testing your speed.
Just ask. So then how many people in here actually test your internet speed? And can I ask a few of those people, do you get the speed? How many of those people have FiOS? How many people have non-FiOS and test the speed? The people that, I'm just curious, the people that do not have FiOS, do you find that your speeds are matching your program, and do you find the speeds consistent? Or is this a secret that I shouldn't ask? No, I'm just curious, more so, because I'm not hammering the competition. I just know certain times, some of the feedback I got over the years was, well, between 5 and 7, when the kids come home from school, my internet gets slow, and then I test it at 2 in the morning, it's fast. But I'm more curious about your upload speeds. Do you look for the upload speed in that situation? And do you get what you're signed up for? Pretty much? Yeah. Because one thing I can say, and I'll say it, with FiOS, if you test our speeds and test it with the cable connection, we will over-deliver, meaning you have an Ethernet cable that goes in, it's hardwired into your laptop versus wireless. If you connect it with the cable, I guarantee you that you're getting faster upload speeds. If you sign up for 100, I guarantee you it's over 100 because we're conservative in how we do it with the engineering. But you'll see the uploads and the downloads to be very good. If you do it with wireless, they're still going to be very good, but wireless is also dependent on the type of equipment you're testing, and it gets a little bit funky with the walls and with the windows. A lot of buildings are green windows and so forth. But this speed test is a really cool thing. This isn't a Verizon site, speedtest.net, whatever. It's really a good way to see what are you getting and when are you getting it to validate what you're using, right? Go ahead. Oh, yeah, absolutely. You go to a URL and you plug that in. And that's what I mean. I have been through many meetings where, it's good to test, when you want to use it versus, I can get my 100 megabit, but I got to get up at 3 in the morning to send the video. And I don't know if we have a slide here, but it shows when you send video, which is 60% of the internet traffic, and 40% of the viewing traffic is for kids under 25 is YouTube, so that's video, right? All that's being pulled down and they're sending videos out. That's when this matters, because you just can't trust that you're getting what you're getting. I'm not saying anyone's doing anything wrong. It could be how the wires are set up in the building, could be where the router's placed, all that good stuff. But we're very comfortable when we look at advertising to say our symmetrical speeds are 100 by 100. And cable will say there's our 100, and then they'll drop off because the uploads don't match.
I recently actually just got gigabit speed at my house, and I was actually so pleasantly surprised to find out that even without a wired connection, I was getting the 940 over 880. And then the wired, I was getting more than that. So it does work. So you should definitely check the speeds that you have. So Verizon offers some products that differentiate us from the competition. And we call it, all the carriers have what they call a bulk program. We call it our VEC value program. And basically what it is a bulk discount program. It's a wholesale discount program for your property. We give you a discounted rate for TV, internet, and or phone services. And it's typically anywhere from 30 to 40% off, depending on how large your property is. And it's for five plus years. The benefit of doing this is that you can get a better deal for your entire property, right? And you can add value to those monthly association fees, right? Nobody likes paying those monthly dues, but at least you can say, hey, you're getting Verizon FiOS. it's something really good that's included in those fees. You're getting the value. It offers market differentiation, so it's an amenity that would, cost more to other properties, right? But you're including it, right? You're making your property and your apartments more valuable to people that you're selling to. And it allows for long-term budgeting, right? Everyone these days is looking at their pocketbooks, so you definitely want to make sure that you're getting the best rate for your residents, and making sure that you're getting the best value for your dollar. Let us know if that's something that you're interested in for your property. We've got, a bunch of folks here today that can take your information about your property and get you a quote. Did I miss anything? Okay, I'll give this to you. You like the epic part.
Oh. Since I serve, I like the word epic.
Epic.
All righty, so ultimately, this is what we wanted to summarize with you today is I would expect next year this to be very similar, except the speeds are going to change. The one thing that I like is we're not going to come out every year with a different flavor. Once you get files in your building, you have many other things to be concerned about in a property. You would have your broadband nailed because of the files, that's the way that it's delivered. And Tony mentioned the speeds. The speeds will only be enhanced. 2 years ago, I sold a gigabit bulk deal to 100 Barclay downtown. And they bought it for, very good discounted rate, all that. But the whole thing was about the image of the property, right? And the residents' experience versus having some trouble issues. We have a dedicated team on this value program. You call 1-800-VERIZON, great company, but we'll like to put you in a IVR queue and then you work your way through it, that's fine. But with the value program, you get a dedicated group of people. And one of the good things, and I encourage you to do this, is grab one of our business cards because Verizon's a big company, right? And it's good to have access to people to help direct you. I think we have a lot of good automated systems for customers, but I think the personalization, my sales team is probably, I'm going to minimize 15 plus years in this MDU marketplace. So we have a pretty established team, and people that have been coming to this session, they're
I'm
like
sure
this.
some of you have seen us multiple
Yeah,
times.
yeah. I know we same seat every year. It's great. It's a very similar story, but I will leave you with this one thought. In 2020, the LFA, the video franchise rights for Verizon, will be re-upped in the city. So we're going to do that to give us the ability to give you video and so forth. But there is a queue. You know what I mean? Like, that's why it's good to know people. With that date coming up, there's a big demand for this to get it in because let's just take it down this path. If you decline, and you can, if you decline files, there's enough in the queue that I will tell you that you better be married to that cable company and whatever price increases they have for the next 5 years. Because it's going to take us a while to cycle through everything. And legitimately, if you say no, there's 2 other people that are saying yes, and then I have to go that way. So something to really think about is what is your strategy for the MDU as far as this broadband explosion and the value of what I'm offering to the resident to enhance the value of our property. So is there any questions on this? Or go ahead.
Well, my question is basically the Internet of Things, rather than entertainment and
Yeah.
videos and things like that. So you did mention one video of things, which was your cameras, but I haven't heard how FiOS for security cameras is a service.
Yeah. So ultimately, think of it this way, in that we provide the platform to make your apartment or your house a smart house or a smart car. So the FiOS, here's what you want to understand. FiOS gives you this much bandwidth. And the Internet of Things could be security cameras, they could be heating, automation to the home. It could be smart cars. It could be different ways of learning education through remote learning. It could be watching Netflix, whatever it is, health monitoring with. So ultimately, all of that adds up to bandwidth. So the FiOS is the platform, and then I didn't get into applications, right? Because the applications would be Apple and Google and Facebook and all that, but they're only as good. Your car, you have a beautiful car, but if you don't have a nice highway, you can't ride that car fast, right? So the idea is we provide that smooth highway, and then the applications that you're looking to use will ride over that. I mean, at our office at 140 West, we have a smart apartment. And in that, you have a refrigerator that's connected to the internet. So a lot of people, and then we do this as a model unit, right? So a lot of people are controlling their lives over their phone, which is an application, and they can see within their unit, do I need milk, do I need this, or whatever, right? So that's more of what's coming. I don't know. I didn't know enough 9 years ago to say we're going to be at gigabit speeds. All I know is whenever I read about the Internet of Things and then what's that next application, killer app, while it hasn't been pronounced yet, say like TV, we are smart watches, everything is just logically being connected. And when you have a 4K TV, just for the heck of it, in a house, that requires 25 megabits of speed. So if you have 3 TVs, that's 75 megabits, and if you bought the 100 megabit service, you're down to 25 megabits. So I get the question, but I'm not a futurist as much as understanding, as you're thinking about your property, let's remodel the kitchen, because I'm going to sell it in 10 years. Well, guess what? That internet is becoming more and more critical. So, all right. Anybody else? All right. Oh, yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. So ultimately, the bulk rate is a discounted rate, right? So it's 100%. So if you have 100 units, we require 100 people. And there's reasons for that. Some of it is our contracts with the content, like ESPN and so forth. And we just had this conversation where we buy content. Sometimes you're going to get CBS Sports blocked. You see it on the news. It's not just Spectrum. It could be Verizon. It could be anybody, right? So ultimately, we have to pay for that content. So based on that content, we get a discounted rate in our contracts if we give 100%. So we need 100%, not 99%, not 80%. We need 100%. That gives us the discount. The break-even point typically, if you're doing it for the building, is about 70%. So versus the retail rate. So once you get to 75% or 80% of the people sign up, if you take that bulk rate and aggregate the number, let's just say it's $5,000 for the month, you would then be cheaper doing the bulk. If it's under 70%, then maybe not so much. But I can tell you, price is one reason. The other two reasons why people do bulk is for the image of the property. I mentioned 100 Barclay. In their materials, they specifically say we have FiOS gigabit internet service and TV service. So it's a way to market the property. So that developer says, I don't want to market the property on legacy cable and say, I have cable TV, right? I mean, so be it. Everybody has cable TV. He actually put in there the specifics. So if you're going to do bulk, look at price, look at it for the property image, for the value of it. And also the third thing is you get a personalization of dedicated people for that building versus the 1-800 call Verizon experience. Yeah. Yes?
Does Verizon offer any kind of assistance with people who are already contracted with Verizon?
So I think the question was, you know, we have people in a building and then we go to roll out bulk, and some people already have contracts. They might have a contract with Verizon, right? Or they might have it with Optimum or somebody else. Well, in that scenario, what you have to do, this is one of the things you got to think about. You want to get, because you got 100 people in the building, you're going to get 100 different flavors. So you want to come up with a baseline, because somebody's going to have gigabit, and you might only want 150, right? I'm going to do the Verizon person first. So that person with the gigabit would get the benefit of the 150 rate for bulk, and then we would just get, that person would then get an incremental bill specific for them for the a la carte experience of going up. But they wouldn't be billed as if they didn't have any discount on the bulk. So it's a separate way of looking at it where, for this discussion, let's just say it's 20 bucks. The gigabit is say 60. That person would then get the incremental 40 charged. The building itself gets the aggregate. Now, if somebody has Cablevision or somebody else, we don't do anything with that. We just say, we bring you the service. We're already discounting it in our perspective, that if somebody says, are you going to buy me out of my contract? No. Not even going to wait. I mean, some people have gotten so frustrated with the latency and the quality of it. Others, to your point, would say, okay, let me do retail. So you still do Fios, you just do the retail. So now everybody gets to pick their restaurant. You know, so it's not like you're out of luck. It's just bulk's not for everybody. In that scenario, if you're going to get 5 board members that say, I want to get bought out of my contract, it's not going to happen. Then you just stay with retail and you get the experience, which is still good. I mean, if you look at a retail race, we're pretty good. You know, a 2-year rate, triple play, you know, 79 bucks. It's pretty good. Minus the equipment. Or, yeah, minus the equipment. Yes?
I'm still a little hazy on that 100% thing. Does that mean if you just wire it into every apartment, that's 100% even if people don't take it? Because I know...
Yeah, if it's a value program, we would, if we're going to bring Fios into your building, right, we're going to wire the whole building. If you're going to ask for the 40% discount rate, we're going to bill everybody at all those units. We're not billing everybody. We're going to bill at one time. But those 100 units, we're going to send you a bill, $100 or 100 units times the bulk price or the value program price, right? So let's just say it was 40 bucks. It'd be 100 times 40, $4,000. That's your bill. The boards typically would then include that in their common charges, or at times some boards have taken to 40 because the retail's 60 and they charge 50 in the common fee. And then they get a $10 incremental kicker for their budget to buy flowers or whatever, landscape.
What I'm asking, well, for instance, I have this eccentric girlfriend who refuses to get a TV, but she has the box with green flashing lights, everything sitting there in the corner, you know, but it's not connected. Now the whole building's wired, but you know, do we still get this milk rate even if people don't take it? Because I know in my phone there's going to be somebody who says, I want to keep the miracle on, I'm happy with that basic cable. You know,
We're going to bill for 100% of the
Right.
units. Whether you activate your service or not, that's up to you.
Right.
I mean, we help you with the activations, getting people to activate their service, but we're expecting you to get the message out to say, hey, folks, we've got this great bulk rate. You should take advantage of it because we're going to be billing you for it, right?
the person that doesn't have a TV is going to say, you can't. Yeah, I'm not using it.
Right, so it depends on your bylaws, right? Some buildings have bylaws in place that say, hey, the board has decided to do this, right? We've decided this is a good thing for the building, and we're gonna bill you in your common charges. Others say, well, no, we need to have 80% of the building on board. On the flip side, keep in mind that you don't have to, though we do recommend that you subscribe to more services, right? Because it's just like retail on the bulk side. The more services you subscribe to, the better the rate, right? The more you commit to, the better the rate. However, you can subscribe to just internet. So if you know your building, everybody wants internet, they want gigabit service, you can subscribe to just gigabit bulk service. And then everyone who wants TV will get a bill individually for that service.
We're gonna pay Time Warner another 75 on top, and once you have Fios, you might as well take the whole.
Well, my point, I thought you were saying that maybe somebody didn't have TV, so the board doesn't want to pay for the people who don't want the TV service, right? I thought that was your point. So then my point is that person can pay for TV to Verizon. They can get Verizon Fios TV, but they'll get a bill separately every month from Verizon for that specific add-on service. We call that an add-on service. So the board doesn't have to pay for it. Make sense?
All right, you know what we'll do, just,
We
I'll
can
see if
deal
there's
with-
any, and then
yeah,
we'll
you can
talk to you.
stop by and
'Cause
we'll talk to you.
it gets a little confusing,
Yeah.
because you think logically, intuitively, well, I'm not using it, why pay for it? But I can talk, it'll take 2 seconds now. Yes, go ahead.
My question is, our building recently was file ready. I see all the pipes of the various
Yep.
government. But a lot of people, and I got a lot of motion from Verizon, trying to get people sign up for it.
Yeah.
Individual unit. And this program, I know for sure everybody nowadays want it. And should set the right. So for both rate or internet service for whole building, and Verizon will build the management, right?
Correct.
Management company for everybody.
For everyone, if you
And-
sign up for a bulk agreement.
And even if the individual unit don't want the internet and it's still paid for, because it's
That's a building decision.
Right.
bill for
So there's 2 reasons you don't. For the ability, yeah, I'm sorry. So the questions are coming around as 100%. So I just want to make sure everyone's real clear on it. If you got 100 units, we're giving you a discount for that 100 units. There is 0, 0, 0 possibility that we'll give a discount for anything less than 100 units. And that's because of our obligations and contracts and so forth. Thank you. So ultimately, just leave the value program thinking it's 100%. Think about if I can get at least 70% of the people will break even. 71%, 72 is all better than retail. We personalize the service, and ultimately the property as what happens. When we started this program, everyone had 1.5 megabit service. We have blown away the competition with the ability with the fiber to provide bandwidth incremental jumps. We're the first ones to bring gigabit to the properties. So that's what you're buying. You're buying the kitchen that you're going to resell in 10 years, and you don't have to worry about ever doing it again, because the fiber optics is going to be the standard for the next 100 years. No, you can do with the good question. The question was, do you have to do internet? Can you do TV or both? You can do voice. Ultimately, you can do phone, landline phone, not cell phone, TV and internet. You can do internet and TV, no phone, or you can do video or internet only. So you can do a single play, a double play, or a triple play. And then what makes sense is you get a quote. If you have any consideration, you get a quote and then you look at it, right? I'm not minimizing the financial impact, but I'm telling you, the front end of this curve is if you have the fiber optics, you can worry about your heating and electrical bills and everything else, because the broadband will be covered really well. Yes.
If there's a problem in the individual units, and who's responsible for that repair or calling for service?
Yeah. So, it's a good question. I mean, ultimately, we have a dedicated phone number for that building to call. So that person would call into a Verizon, I'll call it bulk help desk. And we'll know your building is 545 East 50th Street, because you'll have an identifier on who to call, and we'll manage it that way. So you'll have a direct link into the Verizon service center.
But that'll be the individual in the unit, not your responsibility as a board member, correct? Right,
But we're
correct.
gonna get that experience. Okay, go ahead.
Is there any possibility of a sub-unit type arrangement where the board and its management can charge individuals who have the service in the context of a vote?
So, the question, as I understand, is there a way for the board to charge individuals that are using it? So let's just say 70% of the people are using it, charge those 70% and the other 30% not. It's up to you. We're gonna send a bill every month to you. Board, property manager, $4,000. How you take that discount and carve it up. Certain properties I have charged, they go through the math, 70% of the people signed up, 70% of that 4,000 gets added to their common charges, the other don't. Other properties say everyone benefits. You know, I have a few people that tell me it's like having a swimming pool. It works well, but not everyone swims. But the pool is the benefit and the selling point. So if you, Tony had a slide up there, amenity number one, and don't forget, when I talked about the congestion, the highway, the city, is now broadband. More so than a washing machine and a dryer. Just, you know, pick a study. But why that's gonna always be the case is of all of the borderless connections that people are gonna reach out to, and you can only build so much highway in a congested, landlocked city. So the fiber optics becomes the way to create more lanes without taking up more space.
When you're saying the board always has access to the information that you signed up,
Yeah, you'll know. So the question is who's signing up? You know, you're gonna know what by your bill. We're good at billing it, don't worry about that.
But who controls the turning on the services in individual unit? Let's say you have 80% of the unit sign up, and the other 20% don't sign up. Now, you charge the whole building the 100%, and the management should have to have a way to limit those 20% can't get the service. So who controls that?
Well, everybody has to activate, so you're gonna, it's up to the board here, right? You're gonna have 100 people, you're gonna tell them today's activation day, call Verizon, and they're gonna come out, and they're gonna turn the service on. If 20% of those people don't do that, no, they don't get the service because you gotta activate it. So they have to call up and let us in to bring the service in. If they don't call us up, it will not be activated, or those people might want New York One, and they might want to stay with Spectrum. Then they do it.
And then how does the management know these people turn on Medicaid so getting a charge?
It will be up to you to do your own billing. We're not in that business. We're gonna bring in 100%, and how you do the billing, you know, it's up to you guys. You know, I mean, well, that's all I can say. Yeah. Everybody, if you buy into the philosophy of the swimming pool, everybody can use the pool. Not everyone swims, but guess what? We have a pool, they don't, this building's worth it. Everybody has FiOS, every unit's connected to FiOS. I have emails from people from this show 8 years ago that are asking me to bring files into their MDU because they're in smaller units, say in Brooklyn, where we don't bring it directly in, we have to feed the block to bring the service. And those people are begging for files because they got one provider, it's slow, it's this, it's that, whatever. So you have to buy into the concept of pre-positioning your building to be broadband.
Hello everyone, the next seminar will begin in about 10 minutes. Listen to your
For the
manager,
equipment
top
charges,
issues and best practices.
those
for
charges
the
are
CEO,
included in the
presented by
bill
First Service
to the building.
Residential in room 2.
The equipment charges are included in the bulk service, correct. And that's probably a good, I'm glad you brought that up, that's a good selling point for us with bulk service, because with the retail offers that you see out there, equipment's not included. So we do have great retail promotions, but the equipment is never included when you see those promotions, right? The set-top box is extra, the router, the monthly router fee. When you buy bulk services though, we do include that. We include the router and one set-top box for every deal.
Okay,
The equipment charge.
Hey,
You
let
know,
me do this,
compare the
Chris.
cost,
we're more than willing to talk to you, Bill, let's go a couple more hands and then we're, guys, roll it, let's roll, go ahead.
I mean, this sounds great for a brand new building, or a condo building, but I always took into account that lots of buildings in New York City have some portion of their tenants who might be rent controlled and who we can't force to take a service. So the model doesn't take into account what is the case in New York City where you have a certain percentage of your units that are renting that you can't make changes to their situation.
Yeah, that's why bulk service is not for everybody. Like Andy was saying, you know, you really have to know your building and what makes sense for your building, right? But either way, we want to come in and bring the services, right? So retail is still, again, a great option. So if you know that you've got those rent control, then yeah, bulk's probably not the way to go. Not every, you know, every building is unique though, so you need to know your residents.
But you can't, like, say you have 60% of your people, they're not going to be able to get any kind of a discounted service.
They'll get a great retail promotion. We have
Yeah.
great retail promotions that come out every 3 months. He mentioned $79.99 for all 3 services. I mean, they're great promotions. Custom TV with 150 over 150. I mean, that's a lot of bandwidth for $80 a month, and with you know, not even a contract, a 2-year price lock.
So let me just put it to you this way, 3.2 million living units in New York City, and let me just make up a number, 2 million of them have FiOS. Of those 2 million, 99% have the retail. Properties are just beginning to understand the value of the bulk. To Tony's point, it's not for everybody, but the majority of people are benefiting from these promotional discounts. The reason why you do bulk, once again, in that niche, is to separate your property and give the experience, because some buildings are just frustrated with the delays and the latency, and so it's up to everybody. What this is really meant to be is an option. I didn't want to make this a bulk program. It really comes down to, once again, the retail offer gives you the same exact services, and when you're looking at the Internet of Things, at a minimum, you want to get files in your building. And then you can worry about the future promotions. But you want to have another provider in your building if you don't have it. Otherwise, you don't have a choice. Right? You can only eat at one restaurant at one day, you know, one time.
Competition is always good for the consumer.
So just to clarify, the physical things, how this works, let's say you bring the connection, the box, whatever you call it, into, you know, through the front door of the living room. And if your TV is all in the other end of the living room, it's connected, you have a top box, that's wireless from there to there?
No, it's a coax cable.
It is coax. And say your computer's in your bedroom over there, you gotta
Well, you have a wireless.
It's whatever you have inside your apartment right now,
Yeah,
that
but-
wiring's gonna stay in place. So we're just gonna it's just the connection that we bring in that's gonna be different maybe from what you have right now. But whatever wiring you have in your apartment stays in place.
So we're gonna have a router, we
Right.
have a wireless router. So if you wanna take your laptop and go to bedroom number 2 or living room, wherever, then you can do that. Yeah. So it's really, yeah, it's wireless from an internet perspective. You can connect in the back and around with an Ethernet cable, but yeah, it's wireless. And where you want to position it will give you your signal strength in the unit. You need a cable for that. Smart TV. Yeah. Hold on, I got it. So the question is, I don't want finals. I really don't. I'm just a simple person, and I just like, yeah, I just want a phone. I have a payphone too. Why does a payphone cost 20 cents? I don't know. I've been waiting for that. First time in 9 years, somebody asked me about a payphone. No. So ultimately, what happens is we're bringing the fiber optics. It doesn't require you to have video and internet, right? But the way that the copper is set up, it's less reliable. So if you have copper today and your phone line works, that's great, right? But any new properties we build, we use fiber because it's more reliable. Like Hurricane Sandy, the city got flooded. We took all that copper out and then made a bad situation great. And we redid the city with fiber optics. And if we didn't do that, if we went back to copper, we're taking a copper line directly to your house. It just so much. I mean, we don't have it. I just use this analogy. This is the fiber. I can't make my finger smaller, that circle. And this would be a copper. And that fiber equates with what that copper was. So it's just a matter of, you can still have phone. So you still have your phone, don't worry about it. This is more for the internet and broadband, but the BIOS is a product. It's a product, it's a brand. But fiber optics is the value behind the brand. It what makes the brand happen. Okay, gonna wrap it up? Okay, guys. Listen, if there's any other questions, booth 100.